Welcome to the Borderlands Trail and Ultra Running Podcast. Today, it's the states debates. We've been talking about the states debates for a little bit. What is it? We are interested in Western states, and we want to be interested earlier than ever because we think that this race deserves a longer on-ramp. I hate when Western states comes around. I've only been thinking about it 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not into the narratives. I don't know what's going on. I haven't been brought up to speed. And it's a race that's so exciting and so much fun when it happens that if we can even turn up the volume a little bit, even if the volume's already at 10, if we can get it up to 11 or 12 or 13, it's going to make it even better. And this race has room to increase the excitement. As exciting as it already is to those of us who are diehards, there's a whole next ring of ultra runners who don't know the joy of obsessing over Western states yet. And then they get it. They hear about, okay, on Friday, I'm going to tune in and they're going to watch the race. Next day, I'm excited. And then it's over. And so all they get is 24, 36 hours of the excitement. We are here to change that. I am glad that you are here with me. Here we go. Borderlands. All right, vibe check. All right, so today, as we are doing the states debates, because the field isn't set, we know some of the people that are going to be in it, but those who have obsessed over it in the past know that can change a little bit. We're going to wait until it's really locked in to debate this year's race, but there are plenty of fun things that we can do leading up to it. Right now, Western States is the premier 100-miler in America, and it's not even close. And my good friend, co-host on a lot of episodes, Wolfie, he's going to take the position today that it is vulnerable, that it is not certain that 5 years from now, Western States will still be the premier 100-miler in America. And on the other end is a good friend, Troy Meadows, who is a host of the MidPacker Pod, who behind him has the Belson Institute of Tethics, which sets the bar very high for him, that he better bring his A game if he is going to justify that as his background. And he is going to take the position that for the foreseeable future, barring something unforeseeable, Western States will remain the premier 100-miler in America. And so today we're going to debate that. And we're going to take a more classic approach. We're not Harvard here. But we are going to take this approach where Troy is going to go first, and he's going to make his case that Western States will be, for the foreseeable future, the premier 100-miler in America. Then Wolfie will go for 5 minutes, and then they'll respond to each other's for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then they'll discuss. And I'm the moderator, and also the person that makes sure that this doesn't get boring. I don't foresee that happening. But also, I'm so close to it because I just love this so much, and I'm stoked to even get to be in the room as these guys are talking about it. We're gonna nerd out. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna talk about just this race that is so special. The reason we're doing this at all is because this is such a great race. So before we go any further, Troy, you're the guest today. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Can you give us just high level, because you've got a great podcast? Tell us a little bit about you and the MidPacker Pod. Give me 60 seconds of Troy Meadows.
Oh, thanks, Josh. And, great to be here with both you and Wolfie. Long time listener, third time caller.
Yes.
So the MidPacker Pod, I tell it's a little bit more of a long format. So my episodes go over an hour every single time. But I tell stories from people of the middle of the pack. So it's stories about everyday runners doing exceptional things on and off the trails, and like to touch on a lot of different topics. I've been running ultras for about a decade now. So I'm all in, man. I'm all in. And the one thing I noticed, and I think, something you do really well at Borderlands, is it's just telling stories. And Wolfie mentions it too, I like to say the 99%, but the 95%, right? It's all about the people who are showing up, towing the line. We're not winning anything. We'll never win anything. The MidPacker Pod is about expressing what it means to do hard things. And then I like to have a lot of different guests on the pod. It's a lot of fun. I've been enjoying doing it.
Nice.
Yeah, I love your
Wolfie,
trailing
go ahead.
I love your trailing indicators show that you do. I think that's one of your fan favorites. And if you guys haven't checked it out, go head over there. It's a fun one.
Love it. And Wolfie, high level, just to bring us up to speed, you've got Wolfie's World, but you're always also with me on Bad Runner's Take. So by way of intros, in case this is someone's first time, give us the high level on Wolfie's World.
Yeah, man. Wolfie's World, just kind of my own little monologue series that we've got launched, 13 episodes. And you and I do Bad Runner's Take, try and put one out about once a week, maybe 3 times a month. And Wolfie's World is just kind of this, a fun sandbox that I get to go and play in, and get a little messy. Maybe throw a couple handfuls, fistfuls of sand at the sport every now and then. But no, it really just kind of speaks, I think, to the 95, and these first 13 episodes have been highlighting kind of that self-expression and performance art that we're seeing emerge and defining that. So it's been fun, and I think we've activated a good group of guys. So excited to keep it going. And this is just a fun expansion of that idea.
Yeah.
I just want to add, I need to get on the hotline, because I find myself between Bad Runners Takes and Wolfie's World, like either on a run screaming out into the void, or nodding my head, right? Like sometimes it lands and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally with it. And then sometimes I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I need to get on the hotline and give my own little rant on whatever topic, right? Because I think you guys touch on a lot of different stuff, and you both have very unique perspectives. And then, as we all do, and like sometimes I'm like, oh, and then a lot of times I'm like, this is spot on. So keep doing it.
That's what I think one of Wolfie's gifts is, that he articulates a point in a way that, I'll articulate in a way that, maybe a lot of people, 85% will be like, okay, yeah, I'm with you. But I like the way that Wolfie articulates his points, because you're either, like you said, you're on, or you're like, I got to call him and tell him how dumb this is. Like it's the dream in terms of marketing. No one will love you unless some people hate you. And that's what 100%. I think, like, no offense, Brian. But when you articulate like that, I just feel like it's so entertaining, and I think you do a good job of that.
Yeah. Well, enough pleasantries. Okay. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Cussing is allowed. No crying though. No like audible crying. I call it if someone audibly cries and that person loses. Okay. So kind of considering this a segment of Bad Runners Take. So I'm going to play the music, and then Troy, I'm going to start the timer. Music's over. Start the timer, and it will be your turn. Here we go.
It's a Bad Runners Take. It's a Bad Runners Take. It's a Bad Runners Take. He's the Kipchoge of running.
All right, Troy, your 5 minutes starts right now.
All right. So Western States, why will it continue to be the premier 100-mile race in America? I mean, it's really, there's 3 or 4 pillars here, but history, prestige, legacy, all those things, strong branding. I mean, the kind of thing that persists, it endures. It's the endurance run. It's also hosted in the endurance capital of the world. I didn't make that claim, but it finishes in the endurance capital of the world. Auburn's a pretty cool place, as Sierra foothill towns go. But like by the numbers, like legacy, established in 1974, Western States has been ran. There's, I think, 2 years it was canceled, so we're talking like 50 plus years they've been running this race. It has single-handedly is strong, but it has shaped the sport of ultra running in the U.S. and has set a standard for what quality events look like in this country. And it has a mystique about it. It's a bucket list event for elites and amateurs alike. And there's many reasons for it. If you talk about the competitive depth of field, they have the golden ticket races, which ensure that, on any given year, the best of the best U.S.-based runners and international-based runners, based on some additions to the golden ticket races, have the opportunity to toe the line. For whether you love it or hate it, the lottery system creates scarcity. And if you're a brand, if you're an event, scarcity means that you have a loyal following that want to be a part of what you're creating. And there's this balance of elite competition and grassroots participation that make it very special. As someone who's been there, I've spectated Western States 5 years. There's nothing like watching runners come down Forest Hill. There's nothing like sitting down at Rucky Chucky and watching the elite field either jump in a boat or like cross the river. And there's nothing like seeing the finishes on the track and the spectacle that is people giving it their all to try to get to the finish line in Auburn. We can harp on the quality that we want to see in US based live streams, but Western States has unparalleled media coverage as far as 2025 US based ultra running coverage goes. And there's so many different ways that you can experience the race from a media standpoint. So like, Unbreakable, amazing documentary. It always has high profile brands attached to it. And then there's historical moments. Like something that really resonates with me is like, I was there the year that Rob Carr won the race, but then also like, that's the year that Gunnison finished with 3 minutes to go and Rob ran her in from the track. Like those are the golden hour moments that exist that have been captured at this race, like lamented and cemented in people's minds. So, the course is interesting. That point to point means that you're on a journey. And, I think one thing that the race also has is it has a hero's journey for its inception story, whether Gordy wasn't necessarily the first person to run the event, but he is the story at which the race is really like told through from that hero's journey. He represents the 95%, and he represents doing something very, very hard, very, very challenging, and like breaking a mold. And that basically like incepted the 100-mile journey within 24 hours. I think the scarcity thing, going back to the scarcity thing, like the reason why you can only run less than 400 runners a year is it took an act of Congress to make sure this race could continue to run. So in 1988, Congress basically like informed the Forest Service that they need to let Western States run. And the Forest Service is basically like, cool, we'll cap you at the number of people that ran in 85, which is when the Granite Chief Wilderness was incepted as a wilderness area. So like all these things kind of play into the prestige of the race, creates that scarcity. And then the other thing that's really great about the race is it's not just about the runners, though they provide an amazing experience. It's a not-for-profit. It's there to give back to the Sierra Foothills, to the Western States Trail, and they also do amazing work for medical research within the field. So,
Troy, you have to stop talking.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is not Harvard, but it's also not Salt Lake Community College where I went. All right. Good job, Wolfie. Take it away. And wait, let me get the timer.
Yeah.
Timer, start.
You bet.
Go.
We're good?
All
right.
You're off. Yep.
Yeah. So, absolutely. I agree with, much of what Troy said. And, I think if Western States was going to remain a niche 100-miler within the United States, like it had been for its first 40 plus years, we wouldn't be having this debate. But I think Western States is evolving, or at least the sport is around Western States. And so I preface all of this with the debate of saying, I love Western States just as much as everybody else on this panel and this debate series. And it's from that love that I invoke urgency to bring awareness and debate, to start thinking with a risk-minded mindset towards Western States, and not just a, mindset of expecting status quo to continue to play out, as the sport is evolving. So like I wore the shirt because I'm saying I think Western States needs a revolution. I think it can't sit back and just rest on what got it here. It's not going to get it to where it needs to be for the sport and the professional. So again, I think I'm taking the progressive stance here. Don't let the hippie beard and Troy over there fool you. I think I'm the one looking to be a true conservationalist here. I want to preserve Western States as the premier 100 again. So I'm here wanting to take progressive action, right? I don't want to be somebody with an orthodox mindset to be conservative and just dig heels into the ground and say that, something from 1984 is why we should continue to carry that through forward indefinitely for Western States. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? Like nothing in nature that's alive stays stagnant, right? And I think that's where Western States is at. Stagnancy is one of its biggest ailments. And it was actually a 1984 act of Congress. Troy talked about it, basically protected Granite Chief Wilderness, right? Granite Chief Wilderness is basically about a 4 to 5 mile section of trail that is ran within the first 10 miles of the Western States course. And exactly right. Western States Board was able to get grandfathered approval to basically continue running through this protected area, and it froze the field size at 369. But we're talking 4 decades, 40 years of stagnancy. We haven't gone back to revisit if maybe there's ways to increase the trail size. Western States has been a great custodian of the race. As you mentioned, they're a nonprofit. They protect trails. They do a lot to probably retrofit and secure trails in the area. Why don't we revisit and maybe, take a public position that we'd like to increase the number of participants? It makes little sense in my mind when we think about it. Less than 5% of the race's mileage is protected, and the protected area is fully exhausted, in the first 10% of the race. So why are we allowing that to hamstring us with growth when clearly there's a need to grow Western States from both the professional experience and the amateur? So again, Troy's already pointed to kind of hockey stick growth. There's lotteries, there's live streams, there's course records. Clearly there is growth. Why does Western States need to change, right? I don't think that's really true growth. That's growth that's just sitting there, not actually being tapped back into the race. It's a lottery of heartbreak and disappointment. This was the first year that we saw a reduction in first-time entrants. So we are starting to see the 95 or 99 start to, maybe pull back from wanting to enter Western States. It's a 7 to 10 year commitment. You have to basically know that going in. So again, I see this growth more like a cancer, and the tumor is the wait list and the frozen professional field capacity. We're still looking at the same number of professional fields for the last 40 years. There's not been any change or growth in how much Western States wants to create a larger professional field. There's been no public attempt, planning, outreach. Again, there's no business continuity plan here. Western States is an area that is vulnerable to weather. What's going to happen one day if this course just can't be ran? Are they just going to fold up? Or are they at then that point when their hand is forced, accept the route change? I just see solutions that could be offered to Western States, and they're not bending. They're very rigid. And I think that rigidity and again, that stagnancy are problems, things that we should discuss.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, this is great. First time moderating a debate here. I think I'm doing it right. I think I'm supposed to mute you or something like that.
Yeah, you're good.
Troy. All right, Troy, you have 3 minutes. Let me tell you when to start. 3 minutes going now.
So my constituent is harping on rigidity and the lack of flexibility. But I would say that what Western States has done, at least over, say, the last decade to 2 decades, has been very fluid in keeping up with the needs of the sport. And yeah, we're at an interesting inflection point because the growth of the sport has been accelerated quite a bit over the last, say, 3 years since COVID. But Western States has been pushing the boundaries from what the sport does. So when it comes to maternity and paternity rules for athletes, what it does for what it's done for drug testing and bringing that into the sport, they're really trying to set a bar for the sport and be a directional arrow. And would I love to not have I think it's going to be a 12% chance next year in the lottery when I put in my 32 tickets. Sure. Do I enjoy the journey that is required to do hard things year after year and be consistent in the sport in order to do something that I really value as a goal and have long-term goal setting? I definitely do. I think the hard part is that where Wolfie's argument is they're not doing enough. I think what they've done is taken what they have and they've leveraged it to be a beacon for how the sport is progressing. And they've been a big part of channeling that growth and creating that growth for the sport. going back to like, they have the deepest competitive field in the US. They have a limited amount of spots, and they're trying to make sure that they have enough amateur runners, enough of the 95% towing the line, and provide an amazing product for us to watch as spectators when we want to see the tip of the spear battle. And they do an amazing job of bringing the best of the best on any given Sunday of US runners and some international runners to play ball. So, I mean, I don't know really what else to say there, except for like, what I see is progress, and I see progress that's very deliberate. And I think the board of directors has done an exceptional job of staying up to date and helping to push the sport in a, what I would say, progressive but controlled direction.
Perfect timing. God, you nailed that. All right.
Yeah, so I
We'll
guess
see.
my response to that is that any sort of progressive action has just been in virtue signaling and not in a tangible change or alteration to the course or to the race that actually changes, again, accessibility for amateurs and professionals. That's what we're coming back to. I think that's the Achilles heel. I don't care about necessarily, I don't think it's important to have a maternity policy, but it's not critical in retaining your space in an industry as the premier US 100 miler. What's going to create that longevity for them is progressiveness in areas that actually increase access, opportunity, prize money. Okay, you want to talk rigidity? Think about the fact that you have the executive board member of this nonprofit publicly saying that because it's ran by a nonprofit, it goes against the mission of the nonprofit to pay prize money. That is a very firm foundational stance. We are not going to see prize money under this executive board director. It's also a very hypocritical stance, in my opinion, when the executive board director is making over $108,000 a year in paid position as the executive board director. I think it's kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth to say prize money somehow bastardizes the nonprofit's reputation. There's plenty of nonprofits that exist that do wonderful work, that are able to raise tremendous amounts of money because they do invest back into sporting events. They do have prize money. They do pay for dinners and galas and balls. They have expenses that directly come back to fundraising 10x the amount they invest in those things. So it's a very limited mindset to say that because we're operated as a nonprofit, prize money is against the mission statement. Being progressive in areas that matter, I think, is what I'm focusing on. And drug testing, that's not progressive. Their drug testing policy is the most rigid, nonsensical policy in sport industry. Any positive test in any previous WADA agency, you're banned for life. Banned for life. Like there's a lot of controversy around the way that Western states decided to come up with that policy and have not continued to evolve around it. It's a very firm policy. It doesn't allow for any sort of any athlete from any other sporting event to come into the sport. And we've seen the sacrificial lambs of that just this year with the Golden Ticket Series. So I don't know. You say they're fluid. You say that they're not rigid. I'm pointing to some very key points here, and I don't think you have a response to them. And I haven't heard one yet.
And it's time for open discussion. Okay, going into this, though, let me make sure as moderator, I'm going to track with the arguments. And my goal here is to just try and somewhat sum them up and present them agnostically. And if I'm wrong, this way we'll launch into the discussion is maybe clarifying your point, and then you guys go from there. Troy, your point is that it's like a moving freight train. How do you, it would have to be crazy for this train to be stopped. It's intentionally moving forward. It is moving forward. The step-by-step forward momentum is intentional. It's just, over to Wolfie's point, not moving. It's moving in a way that if they don't change some things, are the best runners in the sport are going to pick another 100 miler, yet there isn't one yet. And so that is leaving room for one to emerge that they all might go to. Discuss, clarify say that was wrong, but go from there. And I'll just say whoever wants to just go.
So
I would like to just rebut the drug testing part of this and say sometimes when you're early and we're really early, like I think everyone wants to think like, the sport is this like big, massive thing. No, like we're still very early in like what the potential for the sport is and what the maturity of the sport from a professional standpoint. And we make leaps and bounds every single year, and that's obvious with the salaries that brands are willing to pay their athletes. But when you don't have a governing body, when you don't have someone that's created guidelines in order to have a safe, clean sport, when you don't have that framework in place, and it's really the wild, wild west, Western States, in my opinion, is taking a very strong stance because they're waiting for the sport to mature into something where you have whereabouts testing, something where you have more than in competition testing and you actually have out of competition testing, and you can fall within the guidelines that have been created by other organizations that are used in participatory sports participatory sports like running, track and field. So at this point they've drawn a line in the sand and they've said, hey, if this is where you've been in the past, this is what we don't want that over here at our race. And it's their prerogative to do that. And I think until there's an actual framework in place within our sport, within the entire sport of ultra running, where you can have real drug testing for athletes, not just in competition drug testing, I don't think there's anything wrong with their policy. I think being rigid in the beginning is a great way for an organization to make changes and loosen up as things actually mature into.
Well, that's fine. I mean, again, the drug testing policy isn't really critical to the debate here today. My only point is that when they do step out to make a policy, it's a very rigid policy that has no nuance to it. And it's unique. We are first, they are first and early within ultra trail, but let's not make a misnomer. Like we have plenty of other endurance running sports that have models that they could have been influenced by, but they come out and create something that's entirely unique to them and entirely polarizing to the point where it leaves no room for somebody to adjudicate themselves, with any sort of clarity or story. So we can move on from that. I want to know though, Troy, do you want to see Western states have more, do we agree Western states would be better if we had 700 entrants next year? If all things being equal, tomorrow, 700 entrants, do we agree that that's a better outcome?
I mean, I think that that's hyperbole because it's beyond their control how many people they can put on the start line.
No, it's not. You're allowed to ask a hypothetical question in a debate. So hypothetically, if tomorrow, all things being equal, would having 700 runners be good?
Sure. I mean, as long as the impact of those 7 runners was manageable by 700 runners. As long as that impact of the 700 runners were manageable based on the areas that they're running in.
Yeah, right. So that's my point then. So then the Granite Chief Wilderness section is the limiting factor for that. That is the only limiting factor.
I mean, they're doing trail work right now on the Granite Chief Wilderness section that's supposed to open up, I think, in 2026. And who knows what kind of deals that they have and conversations they're having with the Forest Service.
Well, right.
Maybe they invested a lot. Maybe like hypothetically, maybe they've invested a lot of capital into making the impact in the Granite Chief Wilderness minimized enough so that they can actually raise the entry list. And we don't know that, and we won't know that until that work is done.
But we don't.
So like we can speak in hyperbole all day long, but like the nature of the beast is like, hey, they can run less than 400 runners every year. That's what we have.
Right. So my point of this is that we've agreed more is better. We've agreed more is not possible because of Granite Chief Wilderness. And my point in this is that for the last 40 plus years since this limitation was placed on it, and more specifically the last, I would say since 2012, when we started seeing lottery entries roll over beyond 3 years. So we're talking about 20 years. The board has never publicly said that we're making efforts to reinvest in retrofitting the trail system to allow more runners. So we have no evidence for the last 20 years that the Western States philosophy or board has any, fantasy idea to want to do anything to change the restrictions. I don't have confidence to say that this new reroute to shore up the trail system is going to do anything. And my point to this is that, again, you're saying that we could be seeing something. We're not hearing anything.
Well, Craig Thornley is pretty adamant every year during the lottery drawing that they work very closely with the Forest Service, and if they could have more entrants, they would. And I would say
that's like hiding behind the shield of the Congress Act, because they know they can't.
This is a situation. Well, it's all up to the Forest Service. The act of Congress was Congress basically telling the Forest Service, you need to allow Western states to continue to run. The Forest Service decides, based on the impact of the natural resources, how many runners could actually run that event. So, like,
that was decided
if I'm Western States, I'm not putting that out there until I know I can make the change. And you have no idea what they're doing behind the scenes in order to make that change.
What do you mean? Dude? The power of the people, man. If you want to have something change in Congress, you activate your constituents. You get people who are passionate about Western states to hear that you're trying to make changes. They lobby for it. They write their Congress. That's exactly what happens. That's how the first act of Congress got put in place that protected this land. And all I'm saying is that if we could, forget that. Let's keep the wilderness section out of it. Can we even come up with a reroute? As I mentioned, these are lands that are sensitive to fires and burnouts. Where's the contingency plan that we could just proactively put in place now to go around the wilderness section, completely reroute Western states?
I mean, have you been to the Granite Chief Wilderness, Wolfie?
No.
It's impossible. It's an amazing place to run.
Right. So now you're saying that exactly 5 miles of trail section in a 100-mile race is worth hamstringing the entrance list.
Right. I mean, right now, as far as the legacy of the race and the Western States Board feels, they think that that's a vital part of the experience.
I'm not debating the board. I'm debating you. You also support the fact that we retain 5 miles of trail in a 100-mile race at the expense of a lottery system that waits 7 to 10 years for runners to enter.
As someone who's experienced that area of the world, I think and you have people that come from all over the world to experience that race. Like it, to me, experience is what I do it for. So like, I don't know what the reroute could look like. I haven't like drawn up maps and said like, oh, well, we can just do this and add on here and do this and do that. But like at the end of the day, there's legacy in the route. It's a point-to-point adventure. And I don't know, man. Like I like running the historical routes. Like, I don't know how I would feel if I was running the like new and improved Western States where you could run 3,000 people. And now it's like this Western States. I mean, it's a UTMB hoopla going on in the Sierra Foothills. Like, that's not for me. I would probably stop putting my name into the lottery because that's not the experience that I want. I want that point-to-point grassroots feel with the prestige and the vibe that exist at Western States currently.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a little bit more, my mind and my experience is a little bit more malleable to accept a reroute of 5 miles within a 100-mile course that contains that's all within the first 10 miles of the race as well. So it's not like it's, this Swiss cheese of like wilderness that you're running in and out and weaving in through these protected lands, and it just completely changes the experience of the race. But also prize money, right? Prize money is also an area where Western states could be as bold as they are with their drug testing policy, but again, what are they doing? They're publicly taking a stance that it just can't align with their mission statement. Like, and the fact that we don't have a 100-miler right now competing with Western states is only a matter of when, not if. I don't think Ironman partnered with UTMB to remain a European and Asian organization. I think that they have a huge infrastructure in the United States, and they're a U.S.-based company. Their identity is here. They're playing nice with this partnership, soft partnership with Western states, and it's a curious, what's going to happen in the next 5 years. If Ironman UTMB plant a 100-mile race with the UTMB prize money and elite access in May, June, July that directly competes with Western states, It's going to radically change the way that professionals plan their calendar. You're not going to see the same type. I don't think people are as invested in the Gordy story when they have professional aspirations. They want to go where the best competition is. And obviously Ironman UTMB would be able to provide more access for them.
So on the other side of that, there's this race called Run Rabbit Run that's ran in the United States
But it directly
of America
competes on the calendar with UTMB. You cannot run UTMB and Run Rabbit Run. That's a disingenuous
it directly
comparison.
competes on the calendar with you. It directly competes on the calendar with UTMB,
right?
And they provide way more prize money.
No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't.
They pay the top 10 way more money than UTMB
no, they don't.
does. Okay.
You guys keep talking. I'll do some research.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, why people are going to UTMB and Run Rabbit Run doesn't have the most prestigious field.
Listen to these guys.
Right.
Exactly. They have the deepest field and they have more money. And you're trying to tell me Run Rabbit Run is somehow a competitor to UTMB when it has less competition and it has less money.
What I'm stating is that I don't think Western states will have a hard time continuing to create a competitive field because Western states represents opportunity. That's what Western states represents.
In the absence of competition, correct. You put in another race series like I've just foreshadowed, which I don't think is completely naive to think would be coming, and it changes radically the opportunity Western states presents. It's not a zero opportunity, but it's a diluted opportunity.
But because of the my point is that Western states has the cachet to continue its mantle, and they can be flexible. They make a statement today saying, hey, we're not going to have prize money, but that's because they don't have the competition and they represent opportunity. And when you win Western states or you get top 10 in Western states as a runner, you move yourself into an echelon of athlete that is now being paid by your brand, but by brands to compete and be the best you can be. So if that changes based on what I've seen the Western States Board, the decisions I've seen the Western States Board make over the last 20 or 30 years, they will change with the times. They're not rigid. They're not rigid in that sense. If someone was knocking on their door to take away their prestige, you don't think that they're not going to make changes and say, cool, let's figure out another spot. Let's figure out someone else to come in and pay the athletes.
No, I think
no big deal.
I think Western states has an identity crisis right now, and it's not one that actually they asked for. What happened is that the sport grew. They embraced the fact that they were this prestigious race, and the Cougar had the allure, and the belt buckle was the greatest belt buckle in ultra running. And it grew organically. They didn't have a plan, and so now what you're seeing is the result of that. The Western States Board and the guys who are nostalgic for Western states much more resonate with hard rock culture. They wish they could be like hard rock and be left alone to do what they want to do, but because they do have this premier status, they have to walk this line, and they're walking the line too far towards the hard rock type of mantra than being progressive into professionalization. I
guess that's your opinion, Wolfie.
I think that's what.
Do you understand the caliber of person that sits on the Western States Board? Do you understand how many
define caliber
businesses?
Of person? What do you mean? Are they holier than
we're
thou?
Talking about?
Are we saying?
No, what we're talking about is entrepreneurs and executives and people who have built organizations and grown and scaled organizations and understand the steps you need to take to manage the culture that you have within your company or within your organization, within your not-for-profit, and managing the scale that happens as you grow that. And I think what you're seeing with Western states is they are running across the arete, right? They're on the knife's edge, and they're trying to figure out through very methodic means how to manage the growth of the sport and the demand for their race while continuing to be of service to the community that they represent.
That doesn't even make sense. There's nothing to manage with the growth of the sport because they're protected by the wilderness area. There's nothing to manage. They have the shield of protection to say we don't have to grow. The race is the race is exactly the same. That's what you actually romanticize about it. It's the same course. It's the same number of field. It's exactly the same.
But those are the limitations that they have to work
Right,
with.
but then you're also appealing to the professional background of these people managing scaling. There is no scale. You know what's scaled? The number of volunteers that come out there. There's 15,000 volunteers that come out to do Western States and create this catered environment for the runner experience, right? What's grown are some of those things, right? But the actual race, still the same number of aid stations, right? Still the same number of runners. I don't understand.
I mean, as far as the course goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. And like at the end of the day, it ain't broke. That's my point. At the end of the day, they've done a lot of things to continue to create their prestige and cement their legacy. Like, there's no other race in U.S. soil that does a better live stream than Western
States doesn't do the live stream.
They did it the first 2 years, and they still provide it. They do.
Who's the actual infrastructure behind it?
Well, now it's Mountain Outpost, but Billy Yang produced it the first 2 years, and he's still the producer of it. So, like, a lot of companies in production will outsource their production. Right. It's like you're staging an event, you outsource your production. You still have someone producing the event for you.
Totally agree.
I just like Wolfie, like what is coming? Tell me. Like, what is coming that's gonna supplant Western States when, like, right now they have all the leverage, and if they need to make changes to the way they operate in order to maintain their legacy, they've shown in the past that they will do that.
Yeah. So again, I've already given you an example of what could be foreshadowed as its biggest challenger. Not to mention the fact that anything else, any other brand, anybody else who wants to be a disruptor in the sport could put a target on Western States and say, I want to come and be a disruptor to this race. And if anybody has a more capitalistic view of bringing actual market value and understanding what the weaknesses, the vulnerabilities are of Western States, and exploit those, maximize the weaknesses as positives for their race, it's going to be a healthy competitor to Western States. And I don't want to see that. I love Western States. A lot of my fondest memories and early experiences with the sports are at Western States, but I am beyond frustrated with the race and some of the limiting factors and things that they say in public, some of the actions they choose not to take.
I mean, I would say you're in the vast minority of
you're right.
people.
You're probably taking the position that's going to have many more fans. And it's my job on this debate to try and expose, again, some of the decisions that Western States isn't taking, some of the actions that they could be, and really educating the listener to just the facts of what's going on.
So what you're saying is the reason why you're mad at Western States is because they don't offer.
I never said mad,
money,
so let's get that vernacular out of there.
The reason why you're frustrated at Western States is because they don't offer prize money for elite athletes, and they are dying on the Granite Chief Wilderness Sword.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see more progressive action. They're a very orthodox mindset towards Western States. They have a very conservative. But when you say progressive, you mean like you want to see thousands of runners running Western States every single year, and you want to see the top end getting paid money to show up to their race. I want to see,
that's what you consider progressive.
Correct. Those would be steps in progress. Right. I don't look at the wait list as something to be proud of. I look at that as a tumor, a cancerous tumor, and you're choosing to ignore it. It's eventually going to start shrinking.
But that's not.
And they're okay with that.
That's not a problem for the race, Wolfie. Like, at the end of the day, the reason why you can't have thousands of people running Western States is the infrastructure cannot support it. I've been there. Like, you can't support having 2,000. You can't support a UTMB on the Western States course.
That's not the American pioneer spirit. That's not.
No, it's not about the pioneer spirit,
Yeah,
Wolfie.
it is.
It's about the reality of the situation on the course in the area.
That's just not factually true.
Have you been there?
That's just not factually true.
No. Let me answer the question. Have you actually been there?
No. And it's not.
So
how does
you
that
have
change?
so wait a minute. So wait, hold on.
How does that
You've
change?
never actually been there.
Right.
You've never seen the event. And you're going to tell me that that it's not that you don't think that I know what I'm talking
Correct.
about as someone who has been
Correct.
there. To say that you can actually have the infrastructure in place to support 2,000 runners plus all their crew plus all the people that show up to the event plus all those things, like the event.
How do you know?
The event
How do you
itself.
know? What makes you an expert in geological survey of runners' impact? I'm sorry. When?
No. I'm not talking about the impact. I'm not talking
What
about
are you
the
talking
impact.
about?
I'm talking about what it looks like
What do
at
you mean?
Robinson Flat. Listen for a second. I'm talking about what it looks like at Robinson Flat, where already with the growth of the event, you have to take a shuttle just to get there. Like you will have crew.
Who said that
You will have people. You have people that will not actually be able to access their runners because you can only have so many people on the course
what,
based on the logistics that exist
Maybe that's
on the
not
route.
a crew accessible spot anymore.
That
what do you want me to?
Based on the logistics of the route, it is the most accessible crew spot at that distance.
So again, what you're telling me is the exact Western state mindset of it just can't be done. I'm an expert, trust me.
No, I'm not saying it. What I'm saying is that you have limitations on the ground that have to come into effect when you're making decisions for your organization and when you're making decisions for the event that you're producing.
All I'm hearing is
and what you're stating, what you're saying,
Western states and Craig Thornton and all that have come before.
But what
you're sitting here,
what you're saying,
you've made an appeal to your on-course experience that you are a geological expert. You know how to survey and understand the capacity, and you have no curiosity or ability to consider a course reroute or a change in aid station. And nobody even talked about 2,000. You're throwing this arbitrary number out there. How about baby steps?
Are you finished?
How about 400 runners? How about 450?
Are you finished?
Right?
They ran 400 runners in 2010.
And what happened?
And
what happened? What happened? Are we okay?
Listen, you started.
Oh my God, dude! You just proved my point.
Wolfie, no, listen to me for a second. I'm not proving your point. All I'm saying is,
why are we not running 400 in 2025?
Because the Forest Service dictates how many people can run the race every single year.
So why do we run 400?
Like I understand how frustrated you are about this. I can feel it in the passion that you have for it.
I'm frustrated now. It's you saying
we started this by saying, would I like 700 people to run the race? And I said, yeah, that would be great, man, because that would double my chances of getting into the race. But like when you walk that back and you said like, we want to see more elites. We want to see more people in the field. We want to see all these things. We want to see prize money. Right. But when you walk back the logistics of the route itself, like
it's Granite Chief.
It would be. It's not Granite Chief. Granite Chief is a linchpin here, but there are other factors. The canyon section alone is very inaccessible. Robinson Flat is very inaccessible. So we're talking about all the way to Michigan Bluff. The first 50 miles of the race, it's very hard to get to those places.
Finish your point, and then I'll try.
And that's why I'm trying to tell you that you have to limit your scale and you have to limit your growth and how you approach the growth of the race itself. And to be honest with you, I don't see them ever running more than 400 runners on that race.
All right. I should, next time we do a states debate, I'm literally going to have popcorn. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy this. I'm eating candy here, trying to make it look like I'm doing the popcorn thing. Okay, let me, I don't want to say fact check, but I'm just going to provide the information. Best I can tell, Run Rabbit Run has reduced the total prize purse over the years. I think 2024 had 100,000. If anyone's listening and I'm wrong, correct me, send me the correct information. And on the other end, it looks like UTMB is increasing, and last year purse being 400,000. for the finals. Yeah, for the main event.
Across the 3 races.
Everything. So again, that's harder because UTMB has so many things.
Yeah.
So let's say first place got 15,000. So men and women champions at Run Rabbit Run, 15,000 each, 21,500 each for the equivalent on the men's side. Okay.
More.
Just providing that as information. You both have 2 minutes to make your closing arguments, and then we'll wrap up. I'll wrap up. Ready? Who wants to go first? How about we go with the same order? Troy, you go first? Or would it make sense, Troy, you want to go last? How about you bat cleanup, Troy? You ready, Wolfie?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, so I mean, it's real simple. I think this was a good debate. I think it exposed exactly, what I was hoping to expose. There's obviously not going to be any clear right, wrong, winner, loser, but it's going to be a nice opportunity for everyone that listens to decide, what type of camp do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a camp that wants progressive behaviors from an organization that is holding and carrying the mantle, right? I think, again, we're advocating for more access for elites and amateurs. And we're asking just for some effort and investment to try and, build out a plan and allow the people to have a voice in it, to no longer maybe, hide behind a 1984 Act of Congress that's 40 years old. I don't think that anybody wants to sit there and see some sort of contrived loop course at Western States. I'm not calling for that. Again, I'm just calling for the creative wheels, the minds to start getting together and strategizing for what Western States looks like when a challenger race comes on the map. Because it's not a matter, again, of if, it's when. And that big monster is in Chamonix right now. And I don't think that they're planning to just continue to have soft partnerships with Western States. I think something will change within the sport within the next 5 years. And if Western States remains this rigid, remains this orthodox to their policies, to their nonprofit stance, that prize money is a direct attack against the ethos of a nonprofit organization, just those types of virtue signaling, those types of stances, it's not good for progression. And again, it's the elite athletes that I also advocate for. I think there's a growing current and undertone within the elites with discontent for Western States and the Golden Ticket Series. And that's not boding well for them. Obviously, Western States as the premier opportunity is going to be where they're at now. But again, I think in 5 years' time, there are vulnerabilities here that we've highlighted.
Troy, ready, go.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, I've been to Western States. I've spectated it multiple times. I was there when Timmy Olsen was the first person to go under 15 hours. I was there when Ellie Greenwood set the course record that Courtney beat, that stood for 10 years. I was there when Rob Krar was the second person to go under 15 hours. And the year and I was there the year that Jim got lost on 49 and the year he reset the course record. There's magic in attending this event. There's magic at being there. There's a magic at running this event. I think we spent a lot of time talking about rigidity and talking about the lack of flexibility, but I think that that's just hyperbole, because as the opportunities come to make the changes needed, the Western States board has shown, Western States as an organization has shown that they will rise to the occasion. I think that when you play the history, the prestige, the competition, and the cultural significance, I think that Western States sits in a really good place, and I think they'll stay in a really good place. Will it be the same race it is today in 10 years? No, it'll change, because they've made changes based on the framework that they have to work in within their organization and within their event. I think while other races will grow, and there will likely be someone that tries to take on Western States, right? I think Western States' unique mix of legacy and allure will keep it the most desirable 100-miler for the next decade and beyond. And honestly, for ultra runners, there's no greater dream than towing the line at Western States. And that dream isn't fading anytime soon.
You nailed it. The timer was at 1. Good job, Troy. This is great. Hey, I'm going to throw this out there. Check this out. Where's it at? Play.
Call Run More 649 649. That's 786-667-3649. Yeah.
You guys should call and give us feedback on this. I tell you, I could have kept going. I honestly stopped the timer twice when it was going. I probably let it that section go 10 minutes longer than we originally said because that's just fun. It's just fun. Great conversation, and you know, really, there's some reality to this. That there's some true meaning here too, of stuff that we talk about. I like what Wolfie is saying is that in his critique, it's coming from a position of love of WSER, and same thing, Troy, his championing of it is from a love of it. So, you know, just to say we are we're building hype early because we freaking love this race. And what a tragedy it would be is if it wasn't. But I sent you guys a calendar invite, March 7th, 2030 for a follow-up. And we're going to see in 5 years from now exactly where we're at. But man, this is great. Troy, thanks for coming on. I mean, this was great. I am so pumped on this. I appreciate you being here. I love the MidPacker Pod. Love that MidPack life. We'll see y'all next time. Feel good? See you.
Man. Hey, Wolfie brother, thanks for